And joining me is civil rights activist Percy Green, a veteran really of the movement from, I guess, the 1950s and probably still, right? I hate to say it, but you've been around
60s,
a while. Okay, we'll say the 1960s. You were involved in CORE, Committee on Racial Equality, originally. Not at that initial demonstration, but at some of the demonstrations that continued and followed. I'm just wondering, 50 years later, you know, we sometimes say, well, who cares? It's a nice thing to commemorate and nice things to note. What should we remember, or maybe what have we forgotten that we need to remember about what was going on then?
Well, we must remember that there was always a profit in racism, and it still is. Now, the point now is to what degree is the profit is still there in practicing racism and racial discrimination.
One of the things that I've always seen Jefferson Bank and others as well is sort of a turning point and a tipping point. Before that, there had been negotiations, compromises. I always said St. Louis was not a place that said give them an inch and they'll take a mile. Give them a couple of inches and they'll be happy for a while. Blacks had the vote. They had some political power, so we're not talking about George Wallace and Bull Connor in St. Louis. Why do you think, because you were one of these people who took that confrontational approach to civil rights, why do you think that was necessary in St. Louis?
Well, again, because we had to make racism a liability rather than an asset. And the way to do that is to make as many people as possible aware of the nature of racial discrimination. And I'm a strong believer in civil disobedience. I think that's when you can get the attention of those that are responsible, and at the same time you can wake up or make the community aware of the problem.
Some people said then, and they probably still say now, that those kinds of tactics, especially the kind that you used, we'll talk about that a little bit with action, set things back, that people have been working really hard to make these gradual improvements, and that this approach set all of that back. You must have heard that.
Well, I've heard that a million times, but you hear that from those from that element that want to mislead the community. But the facts of the matter is that usually businesses get busy and start doing pretty much the right thing when there is some form of confrontation, some form. Now keep in mind now, when you, let's understand that we're talking about civil disobedience. Civil disobedience is a nonviolent form of confrontation.
Now you were, I read somewhere, arrested maybe 100 times?
Yeah, thereabout, yes.
Right. And famously, I think there's a number of things, and I want to talk about things that you're very well known for, but I want to talk about why you were doing that. You climbed the arch in 1964.
That's right.
Stayed up there for what, 3 hours?
No, about 5 hours.
5 hours. Famously blocked, I think, the Veiled Prophet parade, helped unmask the Veiled Prophet at the ball. Some things that are considered outrageous tactics.
Well, it was colorful. I mean, some
did it get news coverage? It got news coverage.
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, anytime you engage, especially people in struggle, and especially black folks, I mean, if there's an element of breaking the laws, I mean, the white news media they see a great deal of newsworthiness in that. You know.
But I want to go back, because as I look at some of those issues, not just your tactics, but the issue for the arch was hiring minority workers in federally funded projects, hiring minority workers in McDonnell Douglas where they're building fighter planes.
And contracts.
So these are all issues that are still with us today. But I wanted to end with one thing, not just the tactics for which you're remembered, but there's a court case that you were involved in, Green versus McDonnell Douglas, which ended up with the Supreme Court decision that made it, I'll say, somewhat easier for someone like yourself to prove through overwhelming circumstantial evidence that there was discrimination in a job.
That is correct.
It wasn't a test case, it was your personal case. But is that really your legacy? Because that's in the law books and that's still the basis of a lot of discrimination suits.
Well, I don't know whether it would be fair to say that would be my legacy, because I'm still active.
Right.
You know, so
are you still angry?
I'm still angry. Yeah. You know, because the progress that has been made is only a broader form of tokenism. So we still have not got it right. And so consequently, until it's gotten right, then I'm going to be active.
Right, this, as they say, is
And
steady
going
work
to be
for you.
disruptive. See, the nature, I mean, what has to be emphasized is that the nature of the protest movement has to be disruptive. We have to disrupt the status quo. Otherwise, the status quo won't pay attention to what is being brought before them.
Great.